Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. It is Sunday night. We are here in DC and we are talking about ice and fire. Um and other shit. Whatever we want, man. The sky's the world's our oyster. We can do whatever we want, man. I mean, is Piggy and Kermit's relationship abusive? I don't think so. I mean, seems like seems like Kermit's into pigs, man. That's what he likes. Um, Now, before I get to these super chats, some of them are pretty quick, but I'll get to them in a second. But I wanted to talk about um, Robb's ships. A user named Moonman, he's been harassing me about Robb's ships. So I want to talk to a little bit about um, the weirdness of them, and there is weirdness with Robb's ships, um, but there's a large but with regards to all of this. He has a Reddit post on this as well, but he brings up some valid points about Robb's ships. So, in case you guys, broadly speaking, in case you guys don't know, back in A Clash of Kings, Wyman Manderly and Moore's Umber are are supposed to build some ships, and the ships are mentioned again by Bran in A Storm of Swords, and it's just sort of fan canon at this point that the ships will arrive at some point in the future if a book is ever produced, and and that they will play a role at the Battle of Ice, bringing in Manderly forces to help with Stannis or something like that. Changing the tide of war. I think I don't know anyone in the fandom that doesn't think that the ships are coming back. I think even when you look at G Steph's research at the library, originally the phrase "we're supposed to go by ship," and Pycelle is afraid that they're going to get attacked at sea. And that part was like cut and changed, but still there's this element that clearly, even when George was writing A Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons, he knew that these ships would come into play. Um and the genesis of the ships comes from Brand 2, A Clash of Kings. And Brand 2, A Clash of Kings is a very interesting chapter. I would call it a small council chapter, even though it's not like Cersei 4, like a proper small council, but it is an actual, like, everybody's just talking about events in the North. It's a bunch of dudes sitting around talking about events chapter. So an essential small council chapter, just with the North. And in many ways, it's a prequel to A Dance with Dragons, in that it is the introduction of all of the problems and characters that appear in A Dance with Dragons. And so the structure of the chapters, it essentially opens with Big Walder and Little Walder making fun of Hodor. And so they're established as characters, Little Walder being the main focus, as being the big jerk. But that's the start. You get Big and Little Walder. And then next, you've got the small council, and Wyman Manderly is the first one to come in. And who is, of course, huge player once we get to A Dance with Dragons. And he wants a mint. And he says that he's been holding back customs from the Iron Throne and things like this. He wants a mint. He wants to build warships for no reason. He just wants to build them, and thinks that he can take Dragonstone and King's Landing within a year with his warships. And he brings up a hostage exchange for his son Willis Manderly. This is an off-screen kind of thing that just keeps lingering through the books. Like, where is Willis Manderly and Harrion Karstark? Like, it's kind of really important where they are, but these two hostages just keep getting mentioned, and we don't know. Maybe, I guess, Willis makes it back, but it's still Harry and Karstark is this issue. And then there's the Lady Hornwood um, incident, which of course, like Lady Hornwood is a big plot of A Clash of Kings, with Ramsay abusing her, forcing to marry her, and then killing her and things like this, torturing her. So Manderly is introduced as a selfish dude, a very selfish dude. He clearly has been taking back money. He wants these warships for some reason. He is worried about his own family and his own kin, and he clearly wants to take Hornwood lands. In fact, after the Ramsay comes in and like tries to takes over Hornwood lands, and then the Manderleys actually come in and sweep him out, and then they don't give back Hornwood lands, and everybody's fearful that the Manderleys are never going to give them back. So Manderly is introduced as a selfish character. Then Lady Hornwood herself arrives, and she says, dudes have been sniffing around. They all want to marry me. They all want my land. And then she mentions that Ramsay is massing men. Then there's an interlude where Osha is swimming, and we talk about big and little Walder again being cruel. And then after that interlude, by the way, for all of Manderly's issues, they say, we'll send a letter to Robb and he'll decide. Of course, there's not enough time to send a letter to Robb in the chapter, but we'll see what I'm talking about. And so, and then Moore's Umber arrives, and he wants Lady Hornwood, and he, for some reason, he says that wildlings are crossing the wall, and he wants longships. And so all of a sudden, they then change their mind about sending a message to Robb and say, you know what, you and Manderly go build some longships. Not warships like Manderly wanted, but longships. And so it's this weird, remarkable coincidence that these two dudes come in asking for ships. And all of a sudden there's a switch from requesting Robb's permission to then just go and do it. And then after this, Glover comes in, and there's like the steward is there, and he's been not saving enough food, and so they order him to save more food. And he mentions the Hornwood Bastard, which is being the Hornwood Bastard is being warded at Deepwood Mott with the Glovers. They want him to take to be the heir to Lady Hornwood, and then the Tall Hearts come in, and they talk about like the Wild Hares, who are a little ragtag group of guys who get killed by Theon in A Clash of Kings, and they want to have the Baron Tallheart warded with Lady Hornwood, and then change his name and take the Hornwood lands. And then at the end of the chapter, the Serwyn boy comes in, and he says that Stannis is king, and it's another king. It's kind of this random thing, like Stannis, who cares? But like, obviously when you're structuring the plot, like Stannis later becomes like the main guy, right? So you're introducing all of these main characters for the first time. The Walder boys, Manderly, Hornwood, Ramsay is mentioned for the first time, the Umbers, Moore's Umber, and then Stannis, so you're essentially have the whole prequel to a Dance with Dragons. And so this question was posed to me like, well, isn't it a little weird that Manderly and Umber seem to both want ships, and because of their annoying the council, they got it without Robb's permission and started on it right away. And it's funny because, the main structure of the chapter is clearly to establish expectations of who's going to get Hornwood land. Is it going to be Manderly? Is it going to be Umber? Is it going to be Glover? Is it going to be Tallheart? And then you're supposed to be surprised when it's Ramsay. Like, that's the whole thing. Establish expectations and then subvert them. Like, clearly that's the function of the chapter in the short term. But, is there a longer, like, scheming idea of Manderly and Umber? And I will say that, like, what's weird about Brand 2 is you establish Manderly and Umber both as very selfish characters who are in it for self-gain. And then all of a sudden, when we get to A Dance with Dragons and the Winds of Winter, they are suicidally pro Stark out of fucking nowhere. Like Manderly just wants to like, he goes to Winterfell and gets stabbed, insulting Freys, and Moors goes into battle and gets his head chopped off, and his head is getting brought into battle. It's not consistent character writing at all from George R. R. Martin, like at all. He established these guys as selfish dudes, and then out of nowhere, they're fucking suicidally pro Stark, which is just kind of insane. And so, when someone asks me like, oh, isn't it suspicious that like Manderly and Umber were doing this? And like, I would say like, okay, maybe at the time, and maybe certainly if Brand 2 were not in A Clash of Kings, say Brand 2 was a chapter in A Feast for Crows or Dance with Dragons, the fandom would be analyzing that chapter and picking it apart and being like, yes, there's definitely something fishy going on. But it's back in A Clash of Kings. And George was not as detailed back then when it came to like, I don't know, plot lines coming back. Like, keep in mind, A Clash of Kings is a book where like, how many dropped plots do I joke about? Like L.R. Deem and the end world zealots that get sent to the wall, all disappearing. I mean, in this particular chapter, there's the odd suspicious steward that rules Deepwood Mott that is never mentioned again, and so much attention is paid to the Hornwood Bastard, who has vanished. We don't even know where the Hornwood Bastard is. I assume that the Hornwood Bastard is on Harlaw, that Asha Greyjoy like grabbed him and like put him on Harlaw, but he's this guy who like he's mentioned all over this chapter. Like, who is this Hornwood Bastard? And Bran has this idea, maybe the Hornwood Bastard should rule. And you think, well, maybe he's, is he just a metaphor for Ramsay and then Jon Snow? But like, he's just dropped as a character, doesn't appear again, the Hornwood Bastard. So like, it's not that I don't agree that like, if we're talking textually speaking, it's completely fishy that Manderly and Umber are completely selfish men who are both coincidentally looking for ships. And then they seem to trick the Bran's council into letting them build ships without Robb's permission. All that is definitely there in the text. That's undeniable that that's there in the text. However, George R. R. Martin wrote it in A Clash of Kings. And like, that's just a book with so many dropped plots where he has retconned Manderly and Umber's personalities 180 that I kind of go, like, do Umber and Manderly have some sort of like selfish game well beyond like their pro Stark conspiracy in a Dance with Dragons? Like, at this point, I'd just be like, I don't know, it's a bit much. I think like George, maybe he thought about that, seeding that at the beginning, and then kind of abandoned it. It would be my guess, if it were there at all. Like, it's just because now that you hide, like, having reread Brand 2 and looking at like how the personalities have just been shifted, and they're completely different characters, Manderly and Umber. That's all I can say is that like, I would vote that this is sloppiness on George's part, that maybe he thought about it and the plot never went there. And instead he made Manderly and Umber suicidally pro Stark out of fucking nowhere, because other than that, because if we assume that they're not suicidally pro Stark, all of a sudden that speech with, in Davos, in Davos 4 and everything like means nothing, and it's so I gotta say like it's excellent analysis work from like Moonman like identifying this and pointing it out. But at the end of the day, I think that if there were something fishy there, and it does, if you read Brand 2, it does seem like something's fishy. I just think it's another dropped Clash of Kings plot that doesn't really make any sense. That's all I can kind of say about it. But that said, the Robb ships are coming back. But yeah, Brand 2 is a weird chapter, and Manderly and Umber are weird, sketchy characters in that chapter, and they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be selfish, like, oh, the North is filled with a bunch of scheming, selfish people, and then that's not the case. Now it's, now it's like, remember Lady Hornwood? Oh, she's not someone that we just wanted to steal land from. Now she's like this person we've got to fight for and get vengeance for. Like, okay, it's a complete 180. Okay, so what is next? Stannis takes Winterfell. What next? Will Gemma make peace with the one king or another? I've gone over the Battle of Ice quite a bit. I think a lot of people kind of understand my feelings on it. Like, I definitely do believe that there's a Manderly Umber conspiracy. I definitely think that, like, Stannis, that George R. R. Martin planned for some sort of, like, Stannis to win at least that first round against the Freys and do something crazy. I do think that there's going to be a return of Robb's ships. I think Dagmar Cleftjaw is going to play an essential role in all of this as this forgotten character. Now that's another like in 180 on stuff. Like Clash of Kings, they specifically say that like that Dagmar Cleftjaw like is totally can't possibly take Deepwood Torrens Square, and then he does with no explanation, and then no one kicks him out. Like, no, like everyone just leaves him there for no reason. But nonetheless, Dagmar Cleftjaw is definitely going to be part of it all. But then after that, like, does he lose to Ramsay? His arrogance in Theon 1, The Winds of Winter, is very suspicious. He, of course, gets killed by Ramsay in the show. This all makes it seem like Ramsay's going to one-up him or something, or maybe the others or the wildlings will come in and one-up him or something. But, it does seem like Stannis's days are numbered. Now, what do I plan on doing with him in the fanfic? I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But Jenna Lannister, I think her name is both at some point in the book. But Gemma is, I do think that she is the logical choice for regent after Kevin gets killed. I don't think that she will have the time or resources to make peace with Stannis. I don't think even ravens could fly between them. I just don't think that could happen. No, I mean, generally speaking, I think that the future of the story is that Aegon takes over and that the Lannisters will retreat back to Casterly Rock and team up with the Ironborn, more or less, somewhat in the show, that sort of stuff. But there's a lot in appendices that kind of show the Ironborn Westerman links that were kind of seeded there in the first place. And so I do think that generally speaking, there's an Ironborn Westerman alliance that's coming, in the story. And so I think Gemma, will retreat at some point back. But I don't see any like peace on that. Hey Preston, could you explain the reference of the Rogue Prince song that you play in your videos and the intro to the stream? Yeah. So many years ago, I did a series called the Genetics of Dragons in War. And the Genetics of Dragons of War is a very interesting series because when people talk about like Preston being crazy, right? Preston and his crazy theories and stuff, like some people will say like, oh, there's no Dornish master plan, how dare he question R plus L equals J back in the day, or Quentin is dead, like these sorts of things. These are the big things. But then the Dragon X theory, which is essentially a theory that it's essentially a theory that dragon riding and dragon hatching is a X-linked trait, X chromosome linked trait, and that if you have two X chromosomes together, you can, you are powerful enough to hatch a dragon. While if you have one X chromosome, you might be powerful enough to ride a dragon. And thus the importance of characters like, namely Daenerys and Rhaenyra, being double X and being able to hatch eggs. Perhaps characters like Rhaenys, the Queen Who Never Was, and Dreamfire Rhaena, being others that might have had double X. And the series tracks the family tree. And, the children they had, and what are the chances that people would have gotten whatever X and whatever Y, and going down the line, and goes through the Dance of the Dragons and the Blackfire Rebellion. And the main thesis of the theory is that the Maesters knew or figured out the Dragon X gene situation and were trying to get Dragon X genes off the throne and dragons dead. And this was the reason why they were so against Rhaenyra and later Daemon Blackfire and Rhaenys, the Queen Who Never Was, and Dreamfire Rhaena, and all sorts of people. That when you look at their arguments that they put forward on like why they don't support one monarch over another, they're pretty flimsy, but it makes much more cohesive sense if it's the Dragon X gene theory. There is a big flaw in the Dragon X gene theory in that you have to assume that high towers have the gene too to make things work, kind of. And so there is a big flaw, but for some reason, I've never heard anyone be like, the Dragon X theory, what a crazy kooky like crap theory. Like most people are like, yeah, that sounds about right, or that's the best explanation I've heard. There's no rival to it. And so when people want to say like, oh, Preston's crazy, like no one ever brings up the Dragon X gene one as like the thing. And keep in mind that like, I didn't come up with Quentin is alive, and I didn't come up with questioning R+L+J. Like other people did that first. Dornish master plan. Yes, I came up with that. And Dragon X gene I came up with. And so like, it's kind of a funny one. Like if you're really saying like, oh, Preston is crazy, like Dragon X gene is like it's as Preston as it gets is that one. And anyway, the reason that the song came up is that it was a very deathly boring series, because I'm just going through family trees and talking about X and Y chromosomes, pairing off and stuff. And so to try to make it more interesting and funny, I just thought it was funny. Like every time we talked about Daemon Targaryen, that we'd call him Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince, and then start playing the music. And it was just one of those jokes that like, it's weird the first time, and then it's not funny, and then it becomes really funny. And so it's just now like Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince, and it's just now it's his song, and like it's his song forever, like and so that's essentially where it comes from. But thoughts on the Hollywood Reporter's interview with the Dan and Dave. They said some really weird stuff in it. I mean, obviously this is so if you watch any Dragon Demands videos, you'll get the full story of all of this. But generally, D&D have a particular reporter that always interviews them, because he only throws softballs and will always write nice about them. And that's what it was. It was a repair your character, repair your personality, like article, trying to give them a bunch of press for the upcoming 3 Body Problem. they had some really weird fucking answers. Like their biggest regrets on the show was that they never brought back Mord. Like that's your biggest fucking regret, Mord, the jailer in the Vale. Like that's your fucking biggest regret is that he didn't fucking what kind of crack smoking? Like what? Like it's just so dishonest. Like right, no one would have that regret. Like no one. So it was a bunch of fluff. I don't think there was anything really interesting or valuable in it. Now, do I think the three body problem is going to be good or bad? I don't know. I mean, D&D, it's not like they're unable to make good stuff. They are. It's in them to do it. So, the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones are them, right? So it's not that like if they're not trying, they can't do something well. We're gonna see if they try, if they pull this off. So I'll be watching. I'll be watching and seeing. It's really hard material to adapt. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Just saying that listening to your content for the last several months has helped me go through an incredibly messy divorce. Thanks for all the interesting anecdotes about travel. Yeah, any time. Like, I mean, it's interesting, like this kind of like profession, because like overall, you do run into people who like, are in weird places in their life, and it's just so happens that your piece of entertainment, fills a particular void. When I was in high school, or not high school, I was actually much younger than this. When I was in like middle school, my sister's best friend at the time was super into New Kids on the Block. And keep in mind that like this was well after New Kids on the Block, like, had entered into the lame period. Back, keep in mind, things are different now. I don't know what it's like with kids right now, but like back in the day, it was everything had a flow. Like something starts growing in popularity, it's okay. Then it gets too popular, and then it becomes lame and uncool, and it's gone. Right? I don't know if that's still the same with kids today, but there was definitely just this like, oh, it got too popular, it's done kind of thing. New Kids on the Block, like when I was in like 6th grade, they were super popular, and then all of a sudden they were not. They were uncool. They were as uncool as Vanilla Ice. It was. But she was wearing New Kids on the Block t-shirts and everything, like all through high school and all of this. Like very proud of it. And I remember asking her about it, and she went on this like long story about how like that her father died, and New Kids on the Block was like the thing that like got her through all of that. And so she would never ever not like New Kids on the Block, and she was proud of them and would never stop wearing their t-shirts and everything. And I understand that like, it's a placeholder, but it makes you feel good. It's still, it still makes you feel like, you're not just like wasting your time. But I know breakups, especially a divorce, like all of the ties of everything is going to be a pain in the butt. I remember once going through a really bad breakup, and I asked a friend of mine whose parents had gotten divorced, like, I don't understand, like this breakup is so bad and so hard. How do people even deal with divorce? And he's like, divorce is different. He's like, you're trying to get rid of this person like 2 years after like you've already had the breakup. Like it's like, like it's something else. Like divorce is like different from the breakup. Like there's a whole nother like level of pain because you have to still deal with everything else afterwards. But I can't imagine. It just must be so hard. I could never imagine like, unsticking a life from somebody else. It'd just be like, ugh. Anyway, I do hope all of this was like, entertaining and something to put your mind on other things. Why would Bolton even meet Stannis? Just leave Winterfell with no supplies and sabotage the road to White Harbor. Stannis asks this same question. Stannis asks this, like, he says the same thing, like, oh, they had the high ground, like in the castle. All they had to do was wait me out, and here they went and sent some of their forces out to attack me. The analysis that I would make about like why the Boltons sent people out, it was more about the turmoil that was going on inside Winterfell and who they needed to get rid of. And so in those chapters, we find that the Freys and the Manderlys are at each other's throats and are causing trouble. But at the same time, there's not enough food. And so Roose Bolton wants to send out people so they have more food. And so why not send out the troublesome ones now who are causing problems? Now, as it happens, this dispute between the Manderlys and the Freys, the genesis of it is Ramsay. Ramsay probably killed Little Walder. I have a whole video series on it, but yes, Little Walder was probably killed by Ramsay, which sparks the whole fight. And when you think about which forces are the least loyal to Ramsay, it's going to be the Manderlys and the Freys. The Freys specifically, keep in mind, are Roose Bolton supporters. They are not Ramsay Bolton supporters. They believe that Fat Walda's children will inherit the Dreadfort. Meanwhile, Ramsay is going around claiming that he's the heir to the Dreadfort. Okay, that is right there, like a huge sticking point. And meanwhile, there's this situation of the Freys missing from Manderly's position and things like this. Anyway, so the fact that they explode because of something Ramsay does, and the Freys are against Ramsay, and Manderly has no, he doesn't actually have that many forces. He has 300 knights, but nonetheless, getting the Freys out is a total Ramsay move because keep in mind that now that the Freys are gone, if Roose dies, everybody else is a northerner that has to follow. He gets all the Bolton people, right? And all the other forces don't really have a leader that's there. We don't hear about Serwyn's leader being there, Tallheart's leader being there. So they have to just follow Ramsay because there's no one else to follow. So the Freys are the only problem people because they are so pro-Roose. If Roose dies, they have no connection to Ramsay. They'd be like, fuck, see you fucking later. That's it. That's all, So in a sense, they're pushed out because they need more food and Ramsay wants them pushed out. Do you think Harry Karstark will reappear? He should. He's just such an important thing. He's this Hallis Mullen kind of character, right? You feel like he's gotta appear. Certainly, we're never getting the Winds of Winter, but so no, I don't think Harry Karstark will ever appear again because we're never going to get the Winds of Winter. But if we were going to get the Winds of Winter, Harry Karstark would be back. Absolutely, he'd be back. Or they'd at least deal with it. And so I think he's definitely coming back in the fanfic, man. Girl who I've been talking to for a while has started going on dates with other guys and makes me feel very uncomfortable. What should I do? here's the thing: is like if 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 she doesn't think you're together, um, she thinks she has the right to go on dates with other guys. Like, um, that's the big thing is that are you just talking to her, or are you actually like an item? Are you dating? You know, if you're dating and you want to be exclusive, you have to tell her like, hey, let's be, exclusive. Um, if you're just talking to her and flirting around and she's going on dates with other people, there's not much you can do. Now, I will say that look, if you're talking about like the game and things like that, the only thing you can do in a play like this, in a power play like this, is to go on dates with other women. Like that's all you can do. Or you can always just like you can also just like say you're going out, like if she's like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow, you can be like, oh, I'm sorry, I got plans, and then there are those power plays and stuff you could do. But it's about all you can do. Like if she's going on dates with other guys, she doesn't think you're exclusive. And so you're gonna need to either establish like things with her, or if you're not even at that stage, like you're just flirting, you're just chatting and flirting, and hooking up or something. The only thing you can do is to like try to make the person jealous back, or like tell them like, hey, let's be exclusive. That's about it. And it's hard to know. Like I'd need to know like the like I'll keep looking for your messages here, but like you'll need to like have the specifics on it. But certainly, if she's dating other people, you need to be dating other people, or else there's a power imbalance. Or she has to think you're dating other people, but that's all you can do in those situations. And I'm sorry about the game. The game sucks, like, playing these mind games with people, but that's all you can do. If she's dating other people, you've got to be dating other people, or else you're just not in the same situation. Tyrion Sand versus Robert Strong for Cersei's trial. So Tyrion's a poisoner. I don't know if she's really a great fighter. Like we hear about Lady Nym and Obara Sand being great fighters. And Tyrion is obviously like hidden now as a religious, like, septa in training or something. I forget what, exactly what it is. Not novice or something. So she's not going to reveal herself and then be fighting. Now if we're talking about like Lady Nym, could Lady Nym fight? I don't know. In fact, there might even be rules about it. Like I don't know if women can even participate in trials by combat, because they're not knights, because only men can be knights, and maybe only knights can fight in these battles. So that would be my kind of guess about that, is that she wouldn't even be eligible because she's not even a knight. If Jon is resurrected and he converts to lore, freeing him from his oath after all he died and his followers follow another god. Freeing us from his oath after all he died and follows. Yeah. A Storm of Swords, like, so the ending of A Storm of Swords has always kind of bugged me. And, in my theory videos, I've kind of put that, like, it's got to be Jon's mind control or something, like mind control over Jon. And I bring this up because, like, at no point is Jon religious. Like, never. He's not religious one bit. all the way up, and then he gets to a Storm of Swords, and all of a sudden he's like, I made an oath, and those are my father's gods. And you're like, fuck, what? Like, where's this fucking religiousness come from? You know, like, I can't reject my father's gods. Like, fine. I mean, and so that's the kind of excuse. I mean, keep in mind that, like, he straight up thinks that he's going to be executed by Janos Slynt at this point. He straight up thinks that if he stays in the Night's Watch, Janos Slynt is going to get elected and he's going to be executed. That's it. Like, this is a straight up belief. And he comes up with this out of nowhere explanation for wanting to stay in the Night's Watch, that they're like some religious, like, now all of a sudden the old gods like matter to him. Never did before. Don't really, you know, like, you know, this isn't like Arya even praying in front of the heart tree or anything like that. Like, Jon doesn't do that shit. Like, Theon is more religious, right? But Jon, now all of a sudden Jon doesn't want to give away his father's gods. Fine. You know, maybe it's you know, it's something I don't understand. Maybe it's like, you know, the you know, the atheist Jew who needs to who somehow needs to continue his religion even though he doesn't believe in God, you know, something like that. I'm not sure. So the thing is, yes, say he's resurrected and then he converts to the religion of Valor. Is he bound by the oath? I mean, you're right that Jon definitely associates the oath with religion, that the religion that he is giving up his father's gods, like that is the big thing. And that, so if he believed that that R'hllor was the god, I mean, Melisandre tells him straight up that, like, his oath means nothing because his gods are false. There's nothing. Swearing in front of a heart tree is stupid, you know. And so, yes, if he were to convert, he would feel that feeling about his oath. But, you know, does any of this feel like Jon? None of this feels like Jon, right? Like, Jon, you know, Jon is even when he was like thinking about feeling guilty about banging Ygritte, he like feels guilty about being an oath breaker and his vows, even though he doesn't associate it with the religion yet. So it just, even, you know, it doesn't feel like Jon in any respect. Like, I get it. Like, logically speaking, what you're saying is completely right based on the ending of Storm of Swords. Absolutely. If Jon's oath is religious, as he was in his head, it was, and but the rest of Jon, outside of the end of Storm of Swords, doesn't like atheist Jon doesn't seem like he would break an oath, you know. So that's the thing. That's the thing. These inconsistent parts, yeah, of the book. What's with George R. R. Martin, latrines and dwarves, Tywin's death, Tyrion running plumbing, dwarf in Mystery Night, foreshadowing of a future act by Tyrion, theft kill. Well, you're in my head a little bit about the future of Tyrion. I kind of have an idea on where I want to bring Tyrion in the future, and like, I see him being useful in Meereen because he was in charge of the plumbing of Casterly Rock, and the big problem in Meereen is the Pale Mare, because they're unable to flush the Pale Mare out through the sewers because their sewers are blocked with dead bodies and shit. And if he got the sewage working and he got the clean water back, the Pale Mare would disappear. And so I kind of have this like in my head, like, Tyrion would be useful about, you know, in that kind of in that respect. But you're right that it is kind of weird that the latrine, that the dwarf and the latrines come back, because you've got the dwarf in the Mystery Night who climbs out the shaft with the egg, Um, and then, I mean, I think Tywin dying on the crapper is simply George really thought that the shit gold thing was the most clever thing in the world, and he needed that to happen. Like he definitely like came up with that joke and was just like, oh yeah, no, that's just no matter what, that's happening. That's happening. You know, the shitting gold line. Like that's all he thought about. That was like the first line of that fucking chapter was that last line. I mean, keep in mind that like George R. R. Martin is a short story writer and he thinks about the first and last lines a lot. And so, but yeah, that's so maybe the rest is coincidence, but you know, I don't know if the shitting gold thing was just that's straight up what he needed to have happen. Tywin Lannister, like not shitting gold, and then built the entire chapter around that. Like that's totally what happened. But it is ending up with a remarkable coincidence on how often dwarves and latrines are associated with each other. Um, hmm. If I could take one prop from any movie or TV set, what would it be? Huh. I'm trying to think about like what's the coolest prop that I've ever seen. Um, I don't even like the movie Time Bandits that much, but I thought their map was such a cool thing that I would have loved to have the map from Time Bandits. Even though I kind of hate that movie. But I'm trying to think of something else. Like some of those like I mean, some of those little contraptions like golden compasses and stuff like that always look kind of cool. I'm trying to think of something from Star Wars or anything like that that I like, you know, like one of Boba Fett's like contraptions or Mando's contraptions or something like that would of course be like pretty cool to have. I'm trying to think of anything else that would be oh, you know what I would love to have? Um fuck. Okay, if I could have one thing, um, um, oh man, yeah, if I could have one thing, it would be the gong from fucking uh, Temple of Doom. That thing would be great. Um, for those people that don't remember, like every Indiana Jones movie begins with the Paramount logo transitioning into a mountain. So it's like South American mountain in Raiders. Then it goes to this mountain on the Gong in Shanghai in Temple of Doom. Then it's like a kind of stone obelisk kind of thing in Last Crusade. And then it's a little hill, little gopher kind of prairie dog like hill in Crystal Skull. And then they don't do it um, in Dial of Destiny, and instead it's a lock. It's the Lucasfilm logo like transitions into a lock, which is just not anywhere as neat in any respect. It was just not the same. Um, but man, if I could have that fucking gong, that would be incredible. I'm sure it's not actually metal. I'm sure that's like wood spray painted with silver. But I love the beginning of um, Temple of Doom, even though it makes no fucking sense at all. Like the entire scene, I fucking it's bonkers. Bonkers does not make any sense. Like it's so stupid. But I still fucking love it. I still just love this idea of like you come in for an Indiana Jones movie, and then all of a sudden you were thrown out like just for a loop because a woman is coming out and singing anything goes in Chinese. Like it's just such a fucking crazy kind of idea that I just thought it's just so fun. It's just so fun. And even though Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a crazy flawed movie, it's so well directed because Steven Spielberg is just, I mean, Steven Spielberg's the fucking goat. Thoughts on Ron, no Riz DeSantis dropping out. I'm surprised he did it so early, but you know, it obviously doesn't mean anything because at this point, like Trump has all the support. But you know, I think he just looked at it like his poll numbers were nowhere in New Hampshire. You need to perform somewhat well in either Iowa or New Hampshire in order to have any sort of like staying power, and he was nowhere close to that. And his donors had all left him and stuff. So, you know, we're stuck with, you know, obviously we kind of knew that we're stuck with Trump, and, you know, America teeters towards doom, and that'll be the end of America. So hopefully this election will go well because it's the end otherwise. I wonder if George R. R. Martin meant a selfish Manderly, but then gardened himself into thinking an old man seeing North dissolve into chaos and family die could turn apocalyptic and chose ideals over practicals. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, rereading the chapter, there's definitely like elements of Manderly where he kind of he does say this line like, you've got no more like loyal man than Manderly. And you at the time you're reading the chapter and you're like, well, that's a bunch of crap. That's a bunch of bull. What a suspicious dude. And then it turns out that the suspicion is you know, right in the end. There is one line in that chapter specifically where Roderick tells Bran, when we speak of the morrow, nothing is ever certain. And so like, you know, obviously at the time that chapter and he was writing it, he was thinking, okay, establish expectations about which person in the North is going to get Hornwood, and then it being Ramsay as the surprise. You know, but it does tell you about like George R. R. Martin's writing style that you know, he has these plans and then he purposely subverts them for the sake of it. It's weird because people are like, oh, he gardens, but he also outlines, and then he claims he doesn't outline because he gardens. It's kind of like he outlines and then he just goes against the outline, you know, like, because he has all these outlines and plans. Like you definitely like see like where the story is going, and then it subverts it and does something different. You know, like it's not like when I see, for example, you know, in A Clash of Kings, like the zealot plot dropped. Like clearly that was like he was gonna have that be the Sparrow plot, and then he just restarted the Sparrow plot again with a new crop of zealots and forgot about the first crop of zealots. Like it's very clear that he had an outline that okay, I got to bring religious zealots in. I got to bring them in. Okay, and then we're gonna bring in different religious zealots. So yeah, I mean, it may be that he was just like, you know, because you know, I think when he wrote it, Dance with Dragons, he probably reread that chapter and was like, okay, what do I need to do here? Because it's really amazing to think about the structure of the story in the sense that nothing happens in Winterfell for 2 books. You know, like Winterfell's burned down at the end of A Clash of Kings, and then there's no POV really in the North. Yes, Bran is in the North. He's walking among like the hill, and he talks very briefly to the Littles, who give him like a little bit of update, but that's it. Right. And then nothing else is in the North. I mean, yeah, stuff is at the Wall and you know, but Theon's gone, Bran's leaving, all the other Starks have left the North. And so like, what's the deal with Glover, Manderly, Umber, everybody, we get nothing from Storm, we get nothing from Feast, and then all of a sudden they're back in A Dance with Dragons. And so of course he had to have reread that chapter, and he probably just like, oh, I see this line where Manderly says that I'm super loyal. Well, I guess he's loyal, I guess he's loyal after all. Even though it's very clear when you read that chapter that he's just saying that shit. Yeah, it's funny how things, eventually work out. Who was the best actor in the show and who was the worst actor out of the main cast? That's a really interesting question. All right, if I'm really going, who's the best actor? The best actor is Lena Headey. I think Lena Headey, I don't think I don't think you have anybody that like, can't like deliver her lines and be as engaging as Lena Headey. She's just a professional. I don't think there's, I don't know of anyone that would like deny that either and be like, nah, Lena Headey sucks. But like, I think Lena Headey is really fucking good. And then if I had to pick like my favorite after that is, I would actually say that my favorite personally is Alfie Allen. I think Alfie Allen is to me really spoke and pulled off the Theon character as well as anyone could ever possibly play him. Even though he doesn't look like book Theon, right? Like Alfie Allen is not as beautiful as Theon Greyjoy is in the book, But the fact that he's able to pull off this character who's been through so much pain and torture and anguish and everything and the material that he's given. So I really like him. And considering that like all the bad material that Nikolai Coster-Waldau was given, like he really kind of saved Jaime Lannister, did what he could. There was a time where I thought Peter Dinklage was really good, and then I kind of got sick of Peter Dinklage's acting style after too many seasons. Dinklage was always like he always did that like furrowed brow thing, and that was like his thing, like. So I think the best actor was Lena Headey, and I think my favorite after that was Alfie Allen. Now, who's the worst? This is really hard. This is a hard question. If it were the early seasons, I would say like Emilia Clarke and Kit Harington and Sophie Turner were really bad. And then I think they become better actors, especially Sophie Turner. She gets a lot better as time goes on. Weirdly, Maisie Williams somehow gets worse. I don't know how that happened. But the Kit Harington gets better. He does what he can. I think Emilia Clarke, I don't know. She chose a bad choice of making Daenerys so stoic, because you see Emilia Clarke in other stuff and she's great, she's fine, but for some reason she pulled the stoic thing. So, but I'm trying to think of like who was the worst among them of that main cast. I mean, I think Emilia Clarke in that role for the 8 seasons is probably like, I think she's good in other stuff, and I think she was really bad. I'm just thinking of all of those scenes of her like stone face being like, I am going to break the wheel, and what a bad acting choice that was. But so I'm going Lena Headey number 1 and Emilia Clarke last in the main cast. Just because they were just like consistent. One is consistently good and one is consistently bad. Huh. Graduated last month. You talked about college fondly. I feel like I got none of the personal growth since most was mostly online during COVID due to COVID advice. Um, my advice to anyone your age, um, 21, 22, 23 years old, is to travel. And the easiest way to do that, and I think the best for your career, is the Peace Corps. If you just graduated, sign for the Peace Corps, and you can choose countries now. And so if you actually tell them, send me wherever you want, they'll send you away quickly, and you'll probably go to Africa or something. Um, I think it's the best growth you can have, and it's also really good for your career too, because you're going to run into some like-minded people that eventually go on to like international work or development work and things like that. Um, you will learn more about the world and and yourself, and see lots of things. And if you're a guy, it's great because the ratio of volunteers is usually like 3/4 women to 1/4 men. So what I'm saying is that, like, do that. Like, and if you can't look at, and if the Peace Corps is not for you, go teach English somewhere. Like, go teach English, and it doesn't matter where. Go teach English in Korea. Go teach English in Taiwan. Go teach English in Japan. Go teach English in China. It doesn't matter. Like Eastern Europe. But the idea is to get out of wherever you're living and go see somewhere else. And I understand that people are like, oh, I've got student loans and look, your student loans you can defer them for or hold them for 2 years. Like, it's really, really like important at this time in your life, especially if you feel like you didn't have like the personal growth to like do this. So that's the big thing. Just, like, in fact, I wish I had done Peace Corps. I did not do Peace Corps. My wife did, but like I did something called Council on International Education Exchange to send me to China when I was 22. But when I think of like what was the most important decision I ever made in my life, and it would definitely be that. Like, that would definitely be up there. I just can't think of anything that's like more valuable to you, and like, because it's not gonna be fun. It'll be fun, and it'll also be like, it'll be massively fun. It'll be absolutely like painful. It'll also be like hard and isolating and challenging in so many ways. But yeah, just there it is. peacecorps.gov. Like, just do it. Go, and it'll change you, man. It's like, I don't like, I can't think of a more important decision I made like in my life than moving to China when I was 22. Like, there's a few others, like choosing to go backpacking when I was 19 or something like that, stuff like that. But like, just on what it did to my mind and who it made me and things like that. But not to make a silly analogy, but I remember once, like, this is before I went diving for the first time, and diving was kind of expensive to get certified and everything. And I was like, is it really worth it? And somebody said to me, like, dude, like, you can make so many excuses or whatever, but like, you will never understand the completely new, different world of diving. And it'll blow your mind. And if you're capable of doing it, like, go fucking do it. And that convinced me, and I went diving, and diving did change me. I fucking love diving. It is a whole new, unimaginable universe that is so unreal. And I fucking love it. But and I'm so glad and happy that I did that. This isn't like something ridiculous, like, playing racquetball or something. Like, I never played racquetball, and then I went to play racquetball. No, racquetball didn't fucking change my life. Like, diving did, like, because it's so unimaginable. going to live in another country, especially an undeveloped country, and the people you meet and the experiences you'll have, if you're capable of doing it and you don't fucking do it, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're like, just fight, like, there's no excuse, and you'll have a million excuses, and people will have a million excuses for it. But I'm just saying, like, oh my God, you have the opportunity to completely experience something new and become someone new and have your mind blown and have like an incredible, good, bad, traumatic, wonderful experience. Like, just fucking do it. Change, like, there's that's all I can say is, like, just do that. Because it's not like I was, in those places where I was lost, like when I was 21, 22 years old. You just got to do something like that. I mean, if not now, when? If not now, when, man? How much is a gold dragon worth exactly? $100, $50,000. People say, haha, George Martin is bad with numbers. But at a point, it kills the logic of the story. It absolutely kills the logic of the story. Okay. So put it this way, like, people buy a horse with a golden dragon. Okay. So I suppose, like, horses come in different costs. So you can actually buy really bad horses for like $100. But even assuming that, what was the I'm trying to think, like what would be the equivalent? Like how much? Like, I'm just thinking they're buying horses with like a gold dragon. So let's assume that, like, okay, a gold dragon's like $500 because I'm just thinking it like buys a horse, right? What was the prize that I'm trying to think of, like, how much they won during the hands tourney. It was $40,000 gold dragons to the champion. 40,000. 20,000 to the man who comes in second. 10,000 to the victor of the archery competition. Okay. 10,000 gold dragons. Okay. So even assuming it's so fucking stupid. Even assuming a gold dragon is worth as little as $100. Okay. Anguy the archer got the equivalent of $1 million. He was given $1 million, Anguy the archer. And, the hound was given $40 million. And that's on the low end, because the gold dragons, but go, and then Anguy the archer proceeds to go to Shataya's brothel and fucks away $1 million at Shataya's brothel and loses all his money. Now, I want to think about that, like, how improbable that is. Like, we know that, like, Rosie is selling her virginity for a gold dragon, which $100 seems a little low for that, right? You'd think that, like, her virginity would be like $500, $1,000, something high, right? So, like, how is Anguy the archer, even if he spent a gold dragon every day, he should still be fucking at that Shataya's brothel fucking away. Like, he should not have already lost his $1 million. Not to mention, like, there's no way that, like, anyone can carry 40,000 golden dragons. Like it'd just be so heavy. Like, you couldn't do it. Like, it's just no, like, George R. R. Martin is bad with numbers. Yeah, it breaks the logic of the story. If you think about the dragons at any point of the story, like it'll all fucking fall apart. Like Angai, there's no way that Angai fucked that many prostitutes, like that many sex workers. There's no way that Angai could do that much fucking. Like, what the fuck? Like, how? Oh man, it's so ridiculous. Um, Now, it's funny because I've read there's actually some actual proper economic papers that try to like analyze Game of Thrones, and it doesn't work because George R. R. Martin does not understand like money or economics or any of this. Um, let's see. Um, the goat boy in Tyrion, A Dance with Dragons threw me off. Are people still gene splicing? Oh. Let me this is let me bring up this goat boy. Ah, yes. So when Tyrion makes it to Slaver's Bay, he gets taken in by um, um, Krasny's, or not Krasny's, um, the yellow whale. Fucking Grasnan hit Harzu. He gets taken in by Harzu. Um, and he's so he keeps a bunch of oddities, right? So he's got a bearded woman, and he's got a goat boy, um, a goat-legged boy who does like grotesque jigs. Um, and so this idea that somehow he would be like a satyr or something. Um, I'm trying to remember. Let's see if there's any. Is there any history of like? Is there any explanation for it at all? Um, I'm trying to come up with like some sort of some sort of historical like explanation on how it could happen on like hairy legs. I mean, okay, say he just I'm just trying to think like, okay, does he just have could he just have hairy legs? Um, is that a possibility that that he's not really a goat boy, but he just has hairy legs, and then he puts on some like hoofs or something to try to make himself. Here we go. They would share space with Yezin's other treasures. A boy with twisted, hairy, okay, they're quoted, goat legs. I see. So the goat legs are um the goat legs are quoted. So clearly Tyrion doesn't think that they're actually goat legs. I think he just has some hairy, deformed legs, and that's it. And that, maybe, I mean, does anyone have backwards knees? Anything like that? Oh yeah, no, people do. Fuck. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, we're solving this. So there were people that have like screwed up backwards knees and stuff that exist. However, the boy dancing around on them is a bit weird, you know? But like that's the weirdest part. Um let's put it with this girl. Yeah. Ah, here we go. Yeah. So this is all like possible. So say you've got something like legs like this girl. She's standing. And say the goat boy's got they're just, hairy or whatever. I think that's all there is to it, is that the guy's got some twisted legs that are hairy. And that's it. I mean, the quotes around the goat legs is the thing that makes me think that um, that it's nothing more than that, than just some very simple deformity, and to not read past it too much. Um, you know that there's not going squishers, others like kind of stuff that let's go with the easiest explanation. Like, what would you think if you came across a guy with hairy goat legs in real life? Like, what would you think in real life? um Maybe Fire and Blood is not a retcon if we just assume that Arion and Oakheart are really, really bad at history. Um, so it could be that, but the fact that like both like, I mean, it's not just. I mean, the queen making adventure being and like Oakheart's desire and her being the queen maker and things like that. Um, like the feeling of the chapter and like its purpose and its parallels, the fact that you're naming a chapter the Queenmaker, and the fact that she's trying to um, crown a girl who's 1 year older than her brother to make up for Rhaenyra, um, is like, it's the whole theme. Like, you're shattering the theme. Like, I understand that, like, yes, okay, let's say Ariana and Ares Okar are just really, really bad at history. They both like just fucked up. Like, but the thematic element of the whole thing. I mean, I guess like you could say, well, the thematic element of the chapter is based on their very, very bad history. But it's also like the rest of the, like, Jamie simultaneously also thinks that um that the same thing about Sir Kristen Cole. Um, so the fact that like the two characters would have like had that like independently have that same problem. It's I mean, unless Jamie is the one that told the bad history to Ares Oakheart in training. He's like, let me tell you about the Kingmaker. And then they both got the same very bad idea about the Kingmaker. But obviously, there's also like the appendice of a Game of Thrones, which says that Rhaenyra and Aegon are full-blooded siblings, with Rhaenyra only being 1 year older than Aegon. I mean, so that's tough. Or that none of the characters ever call them half siblings in story. But I think the most egregious is the undoing of the Kingmaker, because it undoes thematic elements of chapters. It undoes like Jamie and Arion's story. And so that's the big thing. But that's not quite explained with like the characters just being dumb, and just getting things wrong. Like all of the thematic parallels are spoiled and with it, unfortunately. Um what was the Lady of the Leaves? um oh yeah. So what the fuck is with the Lady of the Leaves and the hidden village? It's I don't know if there's much. I know what you're saying here, that it's there's some random scenes with like with uh with Arya at various times in her wandering, her two wandering books that people kind of mostly forget about Arya's wandering. By the way, like the beginning of the Dornish master plan was me like rereading the series and being like, fuck, like what is Brienne doing with these brave companions? And then going to the area, like the Arya chapters, and being like, why is so much time dedicated to Arya wandering around? And then like coming up with this brave companions theory. Um, yeah, Lady of the Leaves, old white-haired lady who lives in some trees. Um, it's off the road, near the road to Hayford in the Crownlands. Um, she's known to the Maester of Lyman Leicester, who directs the Brotherhood without Banners to meet her in order to get information about the whereabouts of Beric Dondarrion. Um, and then she tells the story. I it's funny that they've given her such an important name, but she just kind of seems like an example of an off the main trail, hidden small folk people that are a force, that the Brotherhood without Banners can take advantage of to foment rebellion, later on. That and keep in mind that like these kinds of stories. So one of the most ridiculous theories, that got a lot of traction because it was an early one, was the original Grand Northern Conspiracy theory, which is beyond just a Manderly Umber conspiracy. It's a theory that the entire North and the entire Riverlands is secretly for Jon Snow. And part of it was like all of this time is spent like establishing that there are all these like hidden pockets of people that are ready to fight, including the Lady of the Leaves, and that that the Brotherhood without Banners is uniting them all, and Catelyn Stark, because she feels guilty about being mean to Jon, is is going to is going to initiate Robb's will, and all of these people will suddenly be fighting for Jon Snow. Ridiculous, unfounded theory, ignores so much the fact that like there's half a dozen places where the Brotherhood without Banners go around, and the small folk are complaining about wolves. Like they have no love for Northerners, but like whatever, they're going to ignore all those passages, and they're all just spontaneously going to be like, yeah, Jon Snow, sure, But I think she's just supposed to be an example of a backwater leader, part of like showing the network that the Brotherhood without Banners has to and that's all. But now that you've brought her back, like I feel like she needs to be, she needs to be brought back. She needs to be brought back at some point. Hidden Village. It's funny because it's like, oh, it's in the Crownlands. Trying to think like, where's Hayford? Oh, okay. Oh, that's relatively close to King's Landing. Huh. Let me see this. Let me look up Lady of the Leaves one more time. They climbed to a hidden village through the upper branches, maze rope walkway, mostly moss-colored houses concealing behind walls of red and gold. They were taken to the Lady of the Leaves, a stick-thin, white-haired woman dressed in rough spun. We cannot stay here much longer, the autumn upon us. A dozen wolves went down to Hayford Road 9 days past, hunting. See, right there, like right there, she like doesn't like the Northerners. If they chanced to look upon, they might have seen us. That's it. And then have you seen Barrack? Um, you know, the dishonesty of the Grand Northern Conspiracy Theory that they could, on the one hand, use these like out of the way, rebels as Jon Snow supporters, while forgetting that they specifically in that passage like didn't like Northerners. But yeah, I think that's all the point of it. But like, I don't know. Maybe George R. R. Martin was thinking, no, he wouldn't have. Thinking about like when people start having the mystery of later of Lady Stoneheart killing people, if anyone would have thought it was the Lady of the Leaves, but no, it's Lady Stoneheart. It's revealed in the epilogue of Stone of Swords. So no. So oh well. Slim chance Brown Ben could have served in the Second Sons with Ned's grandfather, Roderick Stark. He'd have definitely known Oberyn. Yeah, I'm trying to think about, let's see. When did Brown Ben join the Second Sons is the question. And obviously yeah, so at least when he was young, he was a bodyguard for House Paul, he claims. But it seems like he was pretty young back then. But yeah, would he have met Oberyn Martell? Yeah, it seems so. In fact, if I remember, on version 1 of my Dornish master plan back in the the original Dornish master plan videos, not Deeper Dorn, which is the more refined one. In that story, in that theory, I claim that Brown Ben and I go a bit far. It's pretty thin, but like in that story, because Brown Ben is Second Sons and Oberyn was in the Second Sons, I established that they must know each other, and Brown Ben, being part Dornish, would have had like a connection, and that when he is trying to get a hold of Tyrion at the auction, he is going up against Zahrina, who has golden skulls on her outfit, and so golden skulls imply golden company, and so like the golden company is Illyrio, and so this would be like Doran versus Illyrio, and they were like battling, and their little battle of Doran versus Illyrio was going on in Slaver's Bay. It was a bit far. It was very thin. But it's certainly not the first to kind of notice that like Brown Ben and Oberyn Martell must have known each other at one time. When did Roderick Stark die? The Wandering Wolf. Because doesn't Roderick Stark come back? He's like in the Second Sons when he's young, and then he comes back. Roderick served in the Second Sons, but then he comes back and then marries a Flint and has kids. So, he's probably going to be like serving way back in like, the year 2010, or I mean, sorry, 210. So there would be no chance that Brown Ben would know Roderick. But I think he definitely has to have met and known Oberyn. Yeah. Preston, what's your rosebud? This is, of course, the Citizen Kane reference. Which is the classic subverting expectations, right? With Rosebud, that you have this movie has this long thing about trying to figure out what Rosebud is by having this entire life, and then at the end it's just a sled. Meanwhile it being a huge plot hole because no one's there to actually hear him say Rosebud. But do I have a childhood item that I'm trying to get back? I don't think so. I don't know. Like, I used to have a lot of bric-a-brac, like knickknacks from traveling that were all very important to me. And then now that I'm older and people keep buying junk for my kids, like toys and shit, and my house is just filled with junk, and I'm just like, all I think about is how much time it takes to manage junk, and how little time left I have on Earth, and how and I'm constantly fighting to throw things out and to get rid of things, because it's just like so hard to deal with the clutter. But I'm just trying to think of like something, like an item that I really, really, really value. And I don't know. When my grandfather died, the items that he had on his body were his wings, and his wedding ring. And those are the and that clearly was like most valuable things that he thought about, was his wings and his wedding ring. I don't know. I don't know if I have any item like that I really just like, I value so much. Like stuff like, I don't know. I've told the Dickover story, right? About this friend of mine. His last name was Dickover, and obviously that name like caused him to be teased and insecure his whole life. But he, out of nowhere, within 1 week, his wife left him, and then not his apartment, but like another apartment in his building burned, and so they soaked all the building, and so everything he had was destroyed. And at the same time, he was like devastated. But I was like, this is like time to renew, like a new life, man, new life. And it's so funny about these things about Preston being I don't know. He turned out fine. He got remarried and has kids now. It's all great. These are these things. So by the way, getting back to like, I just caught some things with my eyes. So all these different weird things. We know you're a federal agent. Like, I think everybody knows I'm a federal employee. I don't know what agent is. Like if you mean like law enforcement who has arrest authority. No, I'm not law enforcement with arrest authority. My organization has um, investigators. So they are technically federal agents, but keep in mind that, like, you know, every inspector general has people with arrest and authority. So that's what a federal agent. Or do you mean, like, when you say federal agent, do you mean like a like FBI? There's a lot of times, like, people default to that, federal agent, but um Preston recruiting CIA agents through Peace Corps. A couple weird things on this. So CIA doesn't have agents either; they have officers. Um, and so the agents, this is the big kind of confusion that they get wrong in the movies. So an agent is an asset, is an officer's asset. So in the CIA, you have officers, and then they don't really do anything. Like this movie idea of, the CIA person putting on an accent and walking into some situation and trying to pretend to be Russian or something is ridiculous. But first of all, it would never work. But, like, they would never do that. They would never send a person in, like, with a cover and things like that. Like, so CIA officers, their job is to, in a country, find sources, find agents, find assets who will give them information. So say somebody working, say a Chinese person working in the Chinese government, a Russian working in the Russian government, they would be targeted. You talk to them and you try to convince them to be an informant of some sort. And they are the agent. So agents are always foreigners. They're assets. Officers are the Americans. So this is the big thing. But related to Peace Corps, one of the unfortunate things about the Peace Corps, which is a fucking great organization, and one of the sad things is because of these jokes of, like, any American abroad is instantly a CIA person, right? Especially if they speak foreign languages. So these Peace Corps volunteers, they spend, like, they train in the local language, and then they learn it, and then everybody, all the locals are like, why does he speak the language so much? He must be in the CIA. And it's like, why would the CIA send a fucking 23-year-old to a village in the middle of fucking Namibia? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, you idiots. like what the fuck? But they really have these, like, ideas, like, oh my God. And in fact, you're barred from joining intelligence agencies for, I think, 5 years after being in the Peace Corps. It might be longer, but, like, you can't there's a big divide because of this, like, myth, and intelligence getting in the way of development work is a big problem. Yeah. In fact, it's really sad, but the head of USAID in Jordan was murdered based on rumors that he was intelligence, and he wasn't. He was just a guy who was the head of a development agency, and it's really fucking sad that he was murdered. But anyway, these, like, I know these jokes are all funny, but it's like there's weird real life consequences to them. By, like, when people are trying to do, like, honest to God good development work and helping people, and then people are like, CIA, and then it fucking, like, puts their lives in danger. Euron Viserion versus John Rhaegal over the God's Eye. I'm trying to think if so this idea would be that somehow like, this Victarion gets a hold of one of the dragons. In this case, Viserion brings it back to Euron, and Euron tames him and starts riding him. Now, when we last saw Viserion was back home in the middle of Meereen, and Rhaegal was the one that was over the ships. So it kind of feels like if any dragon were going to be stolen, it's Rhaegal. But nonetheless, Jon with Rhaegal. I mean, I understand why you'd want to put Jon on Rhaegal, because he's, like, more associated with Rhaegar, right? And that Viserion is the more evil character, right? And is the idea, but nonetheless, Euron Viserion, Jon Rhaegal. I mean, I suppose Euron has the one eye, just like Aemond, and Jon would like somehow find the right side and throw Longclaw, his Valyrian sword, into his eye or something. I mean, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen way late. I mean, let's be honest. For the story to get that far, that's a Dream of Spring territory, and we're all 100% sure Dream of Spring isn't coming out, right? Like, like you can all have be deluded about the Winds of Winter and still believe that the Winds of Winter is coming. But it's one thing about Dream of Spring. What kind of work do people do in the Peace Corps? It can vary. You can do consulting on you learn about agriculture, and then you teach locals about agricultural techniques. Some places you do HIV research and HIV outreach, getting people. There's a lot of sometimes education on STDs. Sometimes if you have a background in a science or something, sometimes they just need science teachers. Sometimes they just need English teachers. So it can all depend. It all depends on what country you're in, but they'll find something for you to do. Sometimes they'll be like, you figure out tourism, how to increase tourism for this village. And people are like, oh God, I don't know. Like you've got a stream and a rock. Like, how am I supposed to increase tourism for this village? But that kind of stuff happens. It varies, but they find stuff to do. How do you feel about the old Littlefinger video? In the fan fiction, we see him allying with Stannis. Will Lane be legitimized? What is the end goal with Harrenhal, etc.? I'm fairly convinced that the end game, that the Vale is heading towards the Riverlands. Now, maybe George wanted the story to eventually head to the north or whatever, but you don't end a chapter saying, we're going to the north, and then go to the north. That's just not George R. R. Martin's writing style. All of the connections in the appendices with the phrase are all Vale related. And so it's just like, it just seems like there's so many reasons. And the idea of Elaine being so connected to Harrenhal, as Baelish's heir is intriguing. When we actually start thinking about like how much time was spent like explaining Harrenhal and House Went and Lothston and everything with Brienne and stuff like that. Like thinking about that, like even when you start thinking about like Brienne holding her sword, she's holding ice hidden, and she's holding, the Lothston shield hidden, like it's painted over with Duncan the Tall's like sigil, and then the ice has been remade into Oathkeeper and things like that. So like when you start thinking about like Lothston Stark, like, and what that means and everything, Harrenhal and Winterfell, the bat and the wolf, it's I don't know. I'm fairly convinced that was George R. R. Martin's idea, Now, when I think about all the things that's in those Littlefinger videos, again, it's one of those things like there's so much weirdness related to Stannis' obsession with Selyse. And it's like, did you just like, but it's Clash of Kings, it's a Clash of Kings again. Like, was George really thinking about it that much? Did he just need somebody to talk about Selyse? Did he really have like did Stannis really have a huge interest in her house, or is that just some random freaking lines that he later dropped? Is it important that that Littlefinger is Braavosi, and that he changed his sigil, and his sigil is hidden and hides who he really is? And do I really think about like the prospect of a Braavosi invasion and things like that? I think I went a little far with the idea of a Braavosi invasion. I don't think that's probably very likely. There's just not enough time in the story, and things like that. But I do kind of fundamentally, I think like the Littlefinger debt scheme like is a real thing, that Littlefinger was purposely stealing money in order to cause chaos, and to cause people to be indebted to him in order to gain power and stuff like that. So could he align with Stannis? I mean, Littlefinger, I guess, will align with anyone, whoever he thinks is convenient, but he certainly was pro Stannis in the first book, right? And then while then pretending to be pretty anti Stannis in the next book. So I don't know. So weird, so he could. I think he just switches things around. I think he didn't. Oh no, wait a minute. Littlefinger hated Stannis because of the brothels situation, taxing the brothels. So he didn't like Stannis. I don't know if he was pro Stannis. He was really anti Stannis, because he didn't like Stannis wanting to shut down all the brothels. Man, back on the dragon discussion, the dragons discussion. I'm sorry here. There's a few missing characters in the story: Benjen, Tyrek, Garyon, Sorel, Rowan, Tarbeck, and her son. Who do you think is coming back? Oh, I mean, there's a bunch of others. There's the Knight of Seashells. Hallis Mullen. I mean, there's so many. I could probably do a list of like 100 missing characters. All of those guards in Dorne, who are supposed to guard Myrcella, went missing. So who do I think is coming back? I think they're going to definitely. Okay, I think Benjen is high on that. Explanation needs to come. I think Tyrek is also high, only because Jaime brings him up. Had Jaime not brought him up in A Feast for Crows, maybe he would never come back. We just assume he's dead. But the fact that like Jaime thinks about him, you kind of feel like a resolution to that needs to come. I think the fate of Hallis Mullen needs to come about. I don't necessarily think Garyon is too high. I don't necessarily think like the Knight of Seashells is necessarily very high. Or even the Wentz disappeared and things like that, like with no explanation. And I don't know if we're ever going to get an explanation for that. But no, I don't think any of the Tarbecks or anything like that is happening. I don't think that's just very important. But I'm just trying to, or trying to think of some others that like need to. I mean, that's the thing is like George leaves a lot of things open where if he wanted to bring somebody back, like Wex, for example, like had Wex never appeared again, would anyone ever think of anything about it? They'd just be like, well, he was killed, Wex died, but then they brought Wex back. Like if you wanted to bring back Daenerys' son, like because she never saw the body, he could be brought, Rhaego could be brought back if George really wanted it, because she never saw the body. It's all these sorts of things, you could bring back Grey Wind if you wanted, because there's so much weird fishy stuff with regards to that. So, um, hmm. Why not the goat boy? There are dragons and talking trees after all. I mean, yeah, it's true that there's dragons and talking trees and others and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, you kind of just look for the logical explanation first. Like maybe Aaron Greyjoy really is resurrecting people on a beach, and it's not mouth to mouth resuscitation. Like maybe he really has the ability given to him by the drowned god to resurrect people. Because after all, I mean, Melisandre, not Melisandre, but Thoros of Myr. I'm thinking of the show for a second. Thoros of Myr does it, right? So if Thoros of Myr can resurrect people through his god, why on earth would George R. R. Martin, a book later, introduce the same thing and not have it be like resurrection with another god? Like you could look at it that way and be like, does Aeron on the beach make any sense narratively speaking? Like, why would you have a supernatural event and then a not supernatural event next? Because we already know that like people can be resurrected. Why not have this character resurrect people? I don't know. George is just weird like that. I think the first thing is like, see if there's a real world explanation that answers it first, and then we'll see. Theory: Angai, a Varys agent, laundered his money through Shataya's brothel, and the Brotherhood Without Banners was using it to fund their rebellion supporting Aegon's invasion. It's not a bad theory. It's not a bad theory. So what we find is that throughout the story, there are a lot of hints of the Golden Company perhaps wanting to be connected to the religion of R'hllor. Illyrio, right in a Game of Thrones, is a follower of the Lord of Light. Right in the beginning. That's well established at the beginning. And then Haldon Halfmaester thinks about like, oh, maybe we could use these Red God people when they make De Volantis. And Aegon is being taught just this like insane minutia about the politics of Volantis. Like why are we teaching Aegon this? Like, I understand that, like, yes, you need it because you need some exposition because Tyrion's going to make it to Volantis later. And then Victoria's going to make it to Volantis later. So we want this exposition. But like beyond that, beyond the need for exposition in the story, is there a reason for this? And, this idea that maybe the Aegon cause is going to take advantage of the religion of the Red God, and then we go on like another level, like why, like who is the king? Who in the King's Men? We're King's Men. What does that mean with the Brotherhood Without Banners? How does that make sense? When they say like in their Knights vow, they talk about following commanders and things like that. Like, what does that mean? Now I understand that thematically, I know the Brotherhood Without Banners are supposed to be these like lost people, right? That like morally, they don't have a very good moral compass, and Sandor like mocks them for their moral compass because they have none. But it's like, do they just in a more logical sense outside of the thematic, like could they actually be Aegon supporters like the entire time? So I don't know. And then you have an explanation of what Angai did with his money. He spent it on the cause. But it he then just but then he disappears, and he follows barracks after the Brotherhood splits. He's not with that band, so I don't know. Hard to say. Hard to say. But it would make more sense. I mean, him fucking away his gold does not make any sense. You can't. No one can fuck that much. But yeah. Did you see Samwell published paper on Westeros? No, wait. I don't know. I don't know what this means. Do you mean like Sam? You're talking about like his claim that all of the writings on the Maesters are wrong, and that like academically he would like go on to publish a paper on that. I'll have to get details on what exactly you mean there, if that's just a joke. Is it possible that Davos is an Illyrio spy? Oof, that'd be really difficult to pull off. That's a really really tough one to pull off, because we're in Davos's head, you know, and so you'd really have to think about like like just like Davos has legitimate, true, real feelings for Stannis and his cause. Trying to think of any way he could somehow be I mean, he actually runs into Salador Sand, who has like stolen stuff from Illyrio, and he doesn't think about anything. He's not like Illyrio, or this is I don't think there is any possibility that he could be an Illyrio spy. Illyrio never mentions him. We're in Davos's head. He never thinks about Illyrio, even though the subject of Illyrio comes up. And he seems to be against the religion of the Red God, which Illyrio is a follower of. But it's true. It's tough. It's tough. Once again, asking for gluten-free pasta stream. Damn it! Fuck. Gotta get the. It'll happen eventually. Gotta make some pasta. I have to check if I have the pasta. Fuck. Fine, I'm getting harassed. I'll get it. Fucking sorry. I haven't eaten pasta yet. Been quite some time since I was here, but thanks for the work on the fanfic. Hope y'all having a lovely time, and we'll be happy to hear the next chapter when it's ready. Yeah, we're not too far away from Quentin. It's just getting some last touches on it, and then I have to record it. But I think Quentin will be out, and hopefully it'll be okay. I know there's a lot of pressure on Quentin to be good, because it was the same with like Bran. But he's coming next, and submissions for Tyrion are starting to come in, so that'll be getting put together, and it's after that, then we'll see where we're gonna go next. I think either we jump into tackling Jamie, or maybe Aaron, or something. But I think maybe that'll be next on that. Was Hodor bonking Bran's head on the doorways on purpose? Oh man, that's so funny. It's funny to think about. That Hodor Hodor actually doesn't like Bran, and he was like actually like smashing. He's actually trying to kill Bran, smashing his head um, at various times. The thing, I'm trying to think if like Bran, if I mean because his Bran's head was getting hit, he had to start wearing that helmet, and then the Walder boys started making fun of Bran, um, which I don't know if like Bran just like not getting along with the Walder boys led to anything. It didn't really. I mean, we got to know who Big and Little Walder were, but I don't know if it changes the story at all. The fact that like we established that Bran doesn't like the boys and doesn't get along with them. Um, like I'm just trying to think like you know because they follow it's not like they betray anyone outside of like they just do what their family did. They follow their family. Like of course they've got to follow the Boltons. Their Walda is married to one. Uh, so Big and Little Walder don't really have that much agency in the story, um, and so I don't think they're very relevant. But I'm just trying to think of like if Hodor is secretly trying to kill Bran, like this is like okay, we can take the theory further and be like Hodor was actually when they were um, during the lightning storm and the wildlings were outside. Hodor actually wanted the wildlings to find them in order to kill Bran and free him, and he was using it as an excuse to make noise. Uh, and that Hodor is actually like trying to kill them, or like Hodor being like such a bad fighter against like the others, like climbing into the cave, that he was doing it on purpose. He wanted the others to kill Bran, or wanted the whites to kill Bran, um, and that was like the plan the entire time. It's a funny idea that Hodor is secretly trying to kill Bran the entire book. He's trying to stop this shit, you know. Can Hodor speak when Bran is controlling him? I think he is. I think Bran could conceivably speak, but but every time he's been in Hodor's head, he's trying to imitate Hodor. So he says Hodor in order to um fool everyone. But I think that if Bran wanted to, he could talk with Hodor's mouth, um, and reveal. I mean, it would reveal to everyone that's clearly that it's Bran inside him, obviously. But let's see what we got. But yeah, I mean, it's something that hasn't come up. But yeah, I mean, I just remember the trip to like the underground stream and him wanting to fool the others. He just kind of sits there and goes Hodor, in order to fool everybody. But he must. I mean, he can control his whole body. Why wouldn't he be able to control his throat, right? I have in my head Pete the Pete the Cat song. Like my boy's been into Pete the Cat lately, so The Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring are in a time capsule that were released in the year 2196 with a letter from George shitting on us. Oh man, that'd be great. I mean, yeah, but by then no one will care. No one will care. When you think about like all of the really popular books from 100 years ago, they're like, you get these things of like books that are like entering the public domain, and yeah, people don't give a shit. People don't give a shit. Like even think of like the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz books. the Wizard of Oz books were wildly popular at the time. Wildly popular. So popular that he wrote like 17 sequels or whatever. Okay. How many people read the Oz books? And if they do, is it because they saw the Wizard of Oz movie and then got interested in the books and then just did it for that reason? Like the only people reading like the Oz books is because of that movie. Um, and so like in 100 years, who will care about um, A Song of Ice and Fire? I don't know. Um, which fictional book in A Song of Ice and Fire would you want? Would you want fleshed out and published? I'm trying to think. I mean, like off the top of my head, you start thinking like Blood and Fire, right? Is probably like the one we think of the most. But I'm trying to think of if there's any other good ones. Um, right, because we hear about unnatural history, and it's supposed to be really boring. And here we go. Let's look at some books and scrolls. Ooh, A Caution for Young Girls. That's the sex story, right? Um, an account of the War of the Ninepenny Kings. Annals of the Black Centaur. Wow, there's a lot. Was it that these must be from like the World of Ice and Fire or something, right? Because I'm just like the Chronicles of Long Sister. Yeah, these are all from like the World of Ice and Fire. But I'm trying to think of the Jade Compendium might be interesting. But I'm trying to think 10,000 Ships. What was the one that Roderick the Reader? Oh, the Roderick the Reader was reading Signs and Portents, right? Yeah, maybe Signs and Portents. The Visions written down by Daenerys Targaryen. That would be probably an interesting one. You know, that'd be probably or maybe they'd just all be it'd just be like an entire book of like patch face prophecies where we're just like, fuck, what the fuck does this mean? Nothing. Um, Poetry, underrated or overrated? Favorite poems? I mean, I think I'm like most people that where poetry seems like somewhat inaccessible, like I've seen lists of books of like these are the top 100 books you need to read. And then they'll throw in like 20 books of like poems and you're just like, I'm not reading a fucking book of poems. Like I'm just no one does that. No one sits down and like reads a fucking book of poems. Like just it I mean, unless you're a poet and you're into writing poems, right? Um so it's not like I don't appreciate a good poem. But it just doesn't seem as accessible as prose, to people. And I think it's just because like it's more difficult. Like we don't think in poetry, like, but we think in, we don't exactly think in prose, but our mind can flow and think in prose, and we think it's more like our thoughts to be in prose and stuff like that. Um, so I think it's just like it feels inaccessible. So I don't know if it's overrated or underrated. I think it's rated about where it should be. Like it's a hard practice. People don't really appreciate it. Um, I think bad poetry, and granted, like not having studied poetry very much and not knowing what good poetry is. Like, I think bad poetry seeps into our society pretty easily, and good poetry goes unnoticed. Um, well, it's, you know, it's a lot harder for that to happen. Like, you can't, you know, 12-year-olds aren't writing books and, like, you know, having them published and be like, you know, this is and keep in mind, I was editor in chief of the literary magazine when I was in high school, and it was all poetry. It was well, it was half poetry, but it was just, there was a lot of, I read over a lot of, like, youth poetry when I was young. So I don't know, overrated, underrated. I think it's just like, it's as, you know, as rated as it could be. Favorite poem? I don't know. I mean, it's a real hard question. I mean, I guess I just don't have enough experience with poetry. I mean, I'd be like, I don't know, like, Shakespearean sonnets. Like, I don't know. Um, you know, it's like, I like that Shakespearean sonnet where he trashes his love, and then says that, like, you know, I love her more than anything else. Yeah. Forgot which sonnet that was, but I still remember it, I guess, after, like, us reading it in school when I was 14 years old. So I seem to remember it 32 years later. But yeah. I get the idea that there's a lot of Mormons in government agencies, especially ones having to do with foreign relations, like the CIA. Is that any truth to it? There's a lot specifically in the CIA. I wouldn't say you run into Mormons anywhere else except for the CIA. And there is a reason why you run into Mormons a lot in the CIA, and that is they do a mission where they go off and they learn a language, so they have language experience. They're very nationalistic, um, Mormons, and they also have not ever done any drugs. And so when you think about the things that disqualify people, um, you know, normally, like, if you're like a nuanced person with, like, mixed feelings about governments, or, you know, like, this is complicated. Do you sound like you're going to be like a CIA person, you know, risking your life and doing shady stuff for for country? Do nuanced people do that kind of thing, or do, like, straightforward, decisive, like, this is what I believe, you know, America is good, we're all given a planet when we die, like, that kind of stuff. So a lot of it's the mentality, like, you know, if you're from, like, an unquestioning, like, patriotic background, and you know foreign languages, and you've never done any drugs, the things that disqualify a lot of people from federal service, yeah, you're gonna get that, you know. So there's a lot. Yes, there's a lot of Mormons. A lot of Mormons in the CIA. You don't run into other places too much. I mean, it's not like State Department. I run into that many Mormons. I occasionally, but, you know, not much. Not much. Any chance Viserys is the one that George R. R. Martin regrets killing? I doubt it. I mean, probably, again, the first thing that, like, George thought with Viserys was like, ooh, I've got this line. I want a golden crown, but it really is going to be a pot of gold on top of his head. I bet he started with that and wrote everything else backwards. Like, that was it. He's going to be going around his whole time being like, I just want a golden crown. And then he's going to get a pot of gold on his head. And it's going to be ironic. Ha ha. Like, that's it. Like, everyone said that Tyrion Lannister shits gold. And then he was killed on a toilet and he didn't shit gold. Ironic. You know, like, there's no way, like, he doesn't, you know. I mean, I think it's, you know, maybe Kevin. Like, I think Kevin is the logical answer on, like, on who he'd regret killing. I think we've been over, like the Kevin reasons on, but there's no way that, like, it would be Viserys, and he wouldn't have regrets all of a sudden, like, years later. Like, I regret having Daenerys freed from her brother to have agency and like lead this entire different story through Karth and Slayer's Bay. Like, have the entire Daenerys story? No. That wouldn't have been possible. I just need to undo the entire undo the entire Daenerys story. No. The Long Night being 5,000 years ago instead of 10 fixes almost every historical timeline inconsistency in the series. Andals caused the Long Night. Thoughts? Trying to think this through, because obviously the inconsistency we have is about like the iron being way too old, it being with the Ironborn and the Starks on their tombs and things like that when they shouldn't have iron. The Andal King being part of the Rat Cook, stuff like that. You know, there's however, if we're going the other way, like we need to have. Okay, so just the Long Night is being switched to 5,000 years ago. So like the Andals are the ones violating the agreement, and thus the others are coming in to fight the Andals. And then the wall is built. I think we'd still be dealing with some problems of like why there are no Andals north of the neck. And issues like that. I'm trying to think of if any of that would make sense. Like what, you know, if they're invading, if, you know, do the others make it all the way down to, and then the lands are given back to the north, like the Northerners? I don't know. The history itself, like, I don't know if it would necessarily work out. I'm just trying to think, like, because if the Andals arrived, because the Andals are the ones that also bring writing. So if the Andals arrive in the world, they'd be running into Children of the Forest and would be writing about Children of the Forest. And they don't write about the Children of the Forest. You know, they burn werewoods and stuff, but like the Children of the Forest are largely gone. And so we don't have Andals doing that. And so you still need some sort of conflict prior to the Andal invasion that drives the Children of the Forest north and out. And the Long Night seems to be that event, whatever it was, you know. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know if like the Andals necessarily solve everything. What? Sam did a real paper with citations now? What is this? What is this? Did this come out recently? I haven't heard about this sort of thing. This past month. Is there a book? I'm not sure if I Sent it a real paper. They test citations now. I don't know. Davos became a Faith of the Seven puppet after they resurrected him. Yeah, it's true. Is there any movie that people think sucks you think has some value? That's an interesting one. Let me think. I mean, I think a lot of people think that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a bad movie, but like I think it's very well directed and very entertaining and fun. I'm trying to think of list of bad movies. Okay. So I put in list of bad movies, and it's like movie 43. Yeah, that was a pretty bad movie. Epic movie is pretty bad. Like the later scary movies. The 100 worst movies of all time. I haven't seen a lot of these, but let's see. I've never even seen Jaws: The Revenge. Has anyone liked that one? I think some people think that's funny. I haven't seen it. God, has a good one. I've never seen Staying Alive. Oh, Highlander 2: The Quickening. Highlander 2: The Quickening. I think that's a good example. And I'm just going through. These are all really bad. These are all really bad. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I guess I'm just going to kind of go with that one, but I would say that there are a lot of Highlander 2: The Quickening. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a bad movie. But it's not poorly acted. Like all the actors are really trying. For the time, like the special effects are all pretty good. There's some very creative designs to like some of the enemies. The entire plot is like crazy imaginative, even as nuts as it is. And you know, it's a pretty entertaining movie, as opposed to like trying to watch something like Crawl or something, you know, where it's just kind of boring. You know, there's a lot of bad movies that are boring. Like I don't think, you know, Highlander 2 is that at all boring. Mortal Kombat Annihilation has some good fight scenes. I don't think it's that bad. Just trying to think of like any other bad ones that I've seen. Last Airbender has some good design, but it's pretty bad acting. But yeah, you know, I would say that like there's aspects to certain things. I think there's a really bad movie called Dead Heat or something. Is that the Joe Piscopo where he gets resurrected? Where the guy gets resurrected and then he has one day to solve his murder. I think it's called Dead Heat. There's some funny scenes in that, and that's a horrible movie. And then I want to say, there is a movie called, shoot, what's that? It's an Ice Cube movie where it's like the most dangerous game. No, not Ice Cube, but Ice T. I want to say Ice T movies. There's this Ice T movie called it's Surviving the Game. And that is it's a really bad movie. However, Gary Busey has this fucking monologue in Surviving the Game that is incredible. It is one of the best one of the best like monologues I've ever seen in a movie. But if you I'm not going to play it because it'll get flagged, but like this scene, if you watch this clip of Gary Busey monologue from Surviving the Game, what a shit movie. But then like in the middle, you're like, what the fuck? I mean, Gary Busey, like as crazy as he is, he's a pretty incredible actor. Oh my god! But yeah, you know, there's definitely some value in those really bad movies. Some of the really bad movies. George R. R. Martin loves to garden, but can he harvest? Read Dying of the Light to find out. I mean, it's kind of true that like about that movie, like all the things gardened in. I mean, the book, the Dying of the Light, like is great, but a lot of stuff is gardened that never harvests in that. But do you think George R. R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss have a bet with each other on who can do nothing the longest? Yeah, I mean, I think they have different reasons for their problems. So Patrick Rothfuss, like he's the one that did the King Killer Chronicles, and he's written the first two books, and he's taking forever with the last one, and he got in a lot of shit because there was some goal, there was some fundraising goal that he had where he was like, I'm just going to release one chapter, and everybody threw in the money. It's like, I think it went, you know, it was like $1 million just to get this one fucking chapter from King's Killer Chronicle 3. And he didn't fucking deliver it. Couldn't get one chapter out. Like just maddening, right? Like, oh my God. It was just kind of insane. And he later had like this apology where he like explained what happened, but it was still like, give the fucking chapter, like just fucking publish it. He's like, oh, but I wanted this one guy to read it. And then it was like becoming bigger. And then it was just like, no, like just fucking release the chapter. No, because he doesn't really have the fucking chapter. That's the thing, is he doesn't have the fucking chapter. It's just fucking lying. So that really, I think after that, people are like, he's done. He's done. Let's see. Can Helena and her daughters hatch dragons? I think there's definitely a chance of that. So this is like one of the big weaknesses of the Dragon X theory is that like how are not just if the Dragon X if like the High Towers were not special, Viserys could only pass a Dragon X gene to Helena, but Aegon and Aemond and Daeron are all dragon riders. So they shouldn't have an ex. And so they would have to get their ex from their mother. And then Helena would have one ex, but then she could pass it to her kids, but then these eggs are hatching and their kids hatch eggs. Like Daeron's egg supposedly hatches, Aegon's egg hatches, Helena's children's eggs hatch. Who's hatching those eggs? Rhaenyra is on Dragonstone. How is it happening? Helena must be special in some way, which would get more into like Maester conspiracy wanting to bring down Helena, like Blood and Cheese and everybody really being like the Citadel doing that shit. Which, man, going over Blood and Cheese, I recently went over Blood and Cheese again, and I it's so not Daemon. Like, it's so obviously not Daemon. And I'm so fearful that the show is going to make it Daemon when it's so obviously not Daemon. Who's doing things. But I'm just so like, we'll see. I'm so fearful that they're just going to have it be Daemon. It's just too bad. I don't know. It's like the one thing I'm praying. Like, it's one thing to like, okay, my dream situation is that Cheese is Larry Strong. But, you know, if the show doesn't portray Cheese as Larry Strong, that's fine. But if they make it Daemon, if they make Daemon the culprit for Blood and Cheese, like, I'm just like, oh God, that's such a bad reading. But we'll see. I'm getting in. Okay, getting to the end here. Okay, regarding the Long Night, Andals help the Starks win the North. Thus bronze and iron in their crowns. Oh, okay. And Andals not in the North. So that, like, the Long Night is actually like the Andals come in, they make an alliance with the First Men to actually fight the children, and then they push all the children north, and part of the deal is that the Starks get the North. I'm just trying to think. Okay. And then they build the wall or something at the end, you know. There's a truce, and they build the wall. And there's an Andal king at the wall. I'm not saying it couldn't. I mean, you know, the history is all inconsistent. I'm trying to think of like if like a new history. Yeah, I'm just wondering why. I mean, you'd have to have that the Maesters whitewashed it all, you know, and didn't write about this war and the children and the Andals battling children of the forest. Right, but then again, I'm trying to remember the Lewin story. The Lewin story is actually off because he says that they have the partnership until the Andal invasion, right? In the Bran chapter. Oh, it actually says the Andals did, according to the history, burn the werewolves' groves, hack their faces, slaughtered the children when they found them, and proclaimed Yeah. So the children fled north. That it was the Andals that made the children flee north. It was them in the first place. But then why wouldn't you know, the current history doesn't make any sense, because why would they, if the Andals were never in the north, the children should still be in the north. Yeah, I think that, okay. All right, Derek, this might work. Yeah. That if the Starks aligned with the Andals to fight the children, and that was the Long Night War, and then they slaughtered them all and then built the wall. That there was an Andal Stark alliance, and that would explain why the Andal is at the story in the Rat Cook, and the bronze and the iron together in the and the iron swords on there. Yeah, okay. That might work. That might work. That could I think that could actually work. Um the Starks were the Oathbreakers. All right. Revenge of the Zorse is the best movie. Just curious, what's PJ's football team? My football team was the Ravens, but I have sworn off football because of the fucking, well, one, because it causes, like, it's proven to cause brain damage, and it's just it's horrible. Like, I can't now, like, watch the lack of tackling in football and not think of, like, the brain damage that it's doing to people, and to 99% of them, which is the statistic. And then the other thing is the Super Bowl 50 like fiasco. I'll never forgive them for Super Bowl 50. Like, what the fuck they were thinking? Like, how, like, there's just such a betrayal that I can never go back after Super Bowl 50. So fuck it, man. I mean, Super Bowl 50. There was just no excuse. There was just no excuse. What role will the Children of the Forest play in your story? I'm not quite sure yet. I mean, I kind of know the next Bran chapter, but there's some issues that I haven't sorted out yet when thinking about, like we're going towards a hold the door kind of, like, scene, right? That similar to what we saw in the show, where everyone's running, and there has to be an escape, an exciting escape. But the and but there is this issue of, like, all those children of the forest who are, like, in their little comas underneath the ground. What happens to them? Do they get killed? I don't know. So we'll see. But it's kind of a I mean, the Tyrion 3 is already, like, obviously a parallel of this, like, hold the door kind of situation, as well as Tyrion, like, running towards trying to get in the South Gate. All right. Ross has spent a lot of money, like, telling me about this, like, the climate of the world of Game of Thrones. Oh my, here it is. What? When was this? When did this come out? I have to show you this. All right, here it is. The Climate of the World of Game of Thrones by Samuel Tarley. Footnote 1. that not footnoted? Where are my footnotes? Where are my citations? Citation 1. I don't references, but okay. It is well known that the climate of the world of Game of Thrones is chaotic. The duration of the seasons is essentially unpredictable. In this paper, inspired by the terrible weather, Old Town would attempt to understand and explain the fascinating, mysterious climate. Here we go. There have been several theories postulated for the cause of the change of seasons. Carbon dioxide, volcanic activity, decreased sunspot activity, decreased ocean circulation. Methodology, climate models. Okay. This is a pretty big supposition that this is what Sotheros looks like, but okay. All right. First run on modeling. Climate for crashing. Okay. Tumbling tilt. I mean, these are some fancy pictures, but I'm actually not seeing like what the modeling is that they're doing. Huh. And then that it's all due with climate sensitivity. Similar simulations. Huge thanks to Gilly, who carried out much of this research in the Citadel Library. Thanks to GLT of the Dothraki Horde for Valyria for keeping updated. Okay, well, the big thing about, I mean, he has some tilt stuff, but he's talking about like, does he deal with like light? Because the big thing about, yeah, so he does actually have in here winter corresponding with shorter days, which is, he mentions the carbon dioxide, volcanic, and ocean circulation. So it's very important that it's a true winter. I mean, the days get shorter, so it's not just climate. So at least he understands that it has to be an actual world tilt issue. So I appreciate that aspect to it. Anyway, anyway, funny nonetheless. Jeez. All right. When did this paper come out? This is the same one. Oh, jeez. Oh, this came out in 2017. So yeah. as a funny little paper. I see. It's actually the first time I've ever seen that. I never saw that before. But I do appreciate the. I mean, he knew his stuff in there. I'll grant that. Um, okay, we finally getting to the end. No Carmine calling in. I'm surprised. He said he was going to call in. Um. Oh, all credit on Andal Theory to A Song of Ice and Fire theorists on YouTube. Oh, okay. I mean, I'm on the top of my head. I'm trying to think of something that doesn't work with the theory that the Starks and the Andals teamed up and slaughtered the the children. I suppose, and then there's just the dates and everything were changed with like Maester writings and stuff like that, because on like how many thousands of years ago these things happened. Can't think of anything off the top of my head. um Preston won at Super Bowl. Absolutely, I did. Absolutely. Like, there's just, you did the Roman numerals our entire fucking life, and then they did the Roman numerals after, and then fucking Super Bowl 50. Fucking, it's just fucking cowards, man. Just cowards. Absolute fucking cowards. It's somebody in some room, like, boardroom, is like, oh, I don't know if this we're gonna sell as many shirts if it's Super Bowl L. Maybe people will be confused, and we want people to spend money. The fucking cowards. Oh my god, like, just the definition of, like, just some bureaucratic, like, idiot. Ugh. Never forgive him. Never forgive him. Writing a book is less always more with magic. Well, I would say that George R. R. Martin certainly believes less is more. His advice is to always create a little mystery, to have people keep reading to try to find answers. And that if you answer too many questions, like, people won't want to keep reading. Um, there's certainly other ideas about it, though, that if you explain a lot, then, like, later on there's more complexities and different aspects of the system that can come into play in the story that can be fun, um, ways to kind of like the idea of, like, the book I, Robot. Like, you establish three laws, and then you write stories about how these three laws might cause problems. If you establish and explain a magic system, and then the story is highly about, like, how these systems, like, work and interact, and then that's great. um you know and then some people, like, I want to say, like, X-Men mutants, you're just, like, removing the entire, like everything, and just be like, well, there's no explanation, they're just mutants and it just works. You're like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's just, so I don't know if necessarily think it matters. I mean, I think you can do it no matter what. I think there's no one way. George R. R. Martin's advice would certainly be to keep things more mysterious, but I think there's fun to be had with rules, playing around with rules and breaking rules, and then there's systems that just, they don't even have any rules and everything works fine. um was there ever a Stark Lannister alliance? I feel like there must have been at some point, right? um there must be at some point, if we're really talking about 8,000 years of history, and especially during the Andal invasion, assuming that you know um, that that they were not allied with the Andals, that they were actually like fighting. There must have been some sort of like loose alliance at some point, but too many thousands of years gone by. There must have been something. Super Bowl L looks silly on a logo. This is the same. They did Super Bowl XXX. Okay, they did the porn bowl. Okay, they did 3 X's. Super Bowl XXX. That happened. Okay, they did Super Bowl LI. They did, like they did Super Bowl L is what we've been fucking waiting for 49 years, because the first Super Bowl wasn't Super Bowl one. The first Super Bowl was AFC versus NFC, but 49 years we were waiting for Super Bowl L. 49 years. Fucking cowards. Silly on a logo. Oh, I don't want to sell my shirt. I want to sell, fucking greedy fucking assholes. Okay? Ruined the tradition. Like, I don't ask for much. I just want fucking consistent Roman numerals on the goddamn Super Bowl. Is that too much? Is that fucking too much to ask? The simplest goddamn thing to keep the fucking Roman numerals that you've been doing your whole fucking life? Like, at some point they did Super Bowl XXIX. They did Super Bowl XLVII. Like, fuck them. Fuck them. Couldn't do fucking Super Bowl L? Fuck them. Cowards. Indolent cowards. Cowards. Worst human beings in the world. I hope everyone on that council of people dies. Okay? Cowards. the paper is full of shit, but I just like the A+ effort. It is kind of funny with all of the charts and the globe and the but I do think it's, at least he did recognize that the days got shorter, and there were various other ideas. Though I'm surprised. I have to go back and see if he talks about like the multi-body like a multi-body 3-body problem kind of situation going on in the solar system or whatever. But it's fun, fun nonetheless. Let's see. Can't wait for Super Bowl 100. Guarantee it won't be Super Bowl C. They'll just do something else. Like, I don't know, think about that. By Super Bowl 100, like how many hundreds of people have been like made brain dead? Thousands of people have been made brain dead. It's like in fucking Super Bowl 50. Oh my God. Like, is this is this what it was for? Does this somehow look fucking better? 50. I'm just saying, there are so many children, okay, who learn about Roman numerals and love Roman numerals. They love them. Now keep in mind, back in real Roman times, Roman numerals were not consistent. Okay, the standardization of Roman numerals didn't come around until very recently. Like in Roman times, if you did IIV for 3 or I for 6, or it didn't fucking matter. There was no like set set way to do it. But there's standardization of Roman numerals came later. But nonetheless, little kids, they really like Roman numerals. Okay, so when you're a little kid and you see the Super Bowl and you're like, oh my gosh, it's Super Bowl like XVII. I know it. I know it. I know it. It's Super Bowl 18, right? That's it. That's part of like every child. Every child like loves like looking up at Roman numerals and like figuring out like the code, the special code. Okay? It's a very special part of like dorky children's like, you know, growing up. Roman numerals. And the fact that they fucking like couldn't handle Super Bowl L. Oh my god. Oh man. Um Anyone remember how there were apparently two winged knights in the Vale, separated by thousands of years, same person? These crop up a lot. 5,000 years, basically same history repeated. That's true. I yeah. This one always bugged me because I'm so focused on Sweet Robin, and I like looked up the Winged Knight, and then in the World of Ice and Fire, they they it's written, it all of a sudden changes the story to the Winged Knight is often confused with the Falcon Knight, and then they switch the histories to a Winged Knight being this old story, and the Falcon Knight being a later one, and it was just like that completely does not make sense in the story's context. That like both Sansa, who loves stories, and Sweet Robin, who loves stories, would both independently fuck up and get wrong who the Winged Knight was. Come on. Come on. And so I like messaged Elio and was like, was this your idea or is this George's? And he's like, it was George's. I was like, fuck, how did that fucking happen? Like, how did he retcon in the World of Ice and Fire who the Winged Knight was? So fucking weird. My cousin starred in a movie, in a So Bad It's Good movie, and my uncle was editor for a movie that was disappointed. They made awesome comebacks. Lovely theme of LA. I mean, oh, there's a lot of people that star in really bad movie. I mean, Jennifer Aniston was in Leprechaun. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio was in Critters 3. I mean, it's almost even a rite of passage that these incredible actors are in really bad movies. I mean, Michael Caine's in Jaws: The Revenge. I mean, Ben Kingsley's in Blood Rain. You know, like, come on. Preston will obviously die in the Super Bowl Hill. I think look. No one fucking like. There's no one that I've ever met in real life that thinks, honestly, like that Super Bowl, like switching to Arabic numerals for Super Bowl 50 was a good idea. No one thinks this. Like everyone agrees, like, yeah, no, it should have been Super Bowl L. Like, come on. Preston needs to name 20 NFL positions to continue this rant. Jesus Christ. I mean, you're talking about like if you have like your like what, like each of the linemen, like how there's the tight tackle and the right tackle and the left tackle and like I mean, and the center, and you know, your running back and your quarterback and your halfback, you know. 20 positions, that's pretty, like you have to know each of, in order to get to 20 you would need to like know the like the lame like name for each of them, which no one talks about them, the tight tackle, shit like that, but whatever. Special teams, I mean, I'm like any other guy. I grew up my entire life in America, like around men. I mean, of course, I know about football. Like, um, da, 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 Arabic numerals shouldn't be taught in school. Look, man, screw it, kanji numerals for the Super Bowl. Whoosh. I mean, you might as well. I would have been happier had they done that. Had they done the Chinese Japanese, like 50 right there. Like that would have been better. Had they done like Persian, I would have even been happier with that. Arabs use the Persian numerals weirdly. We use Arabic numerals. I mean, we all call them weird things, but whatever. The 50, because then it would have been, people would have just been confused, because 50 in what in actual Middle East is like, it looks like a zero and then a dot. It's just but man, there are more pressing matters. World hunger can wait. No, I mean, I mentioned the fact that like football causes people's brain damage, but come on, like it's it's like Super Bowl 50. Like what an abomination, man. What an abomination. Like so that they could sell this, like so they could sell these god awful hats. So these god awful hats could like appear in Africa like 2 years later. Like who is, so that they could make these god awful hats, cuz putting L there was just like too much. Super Bowl Zero, the edgy reboot. Oh man. All right. I made it to the end. All right. I guess. Well, if Carmine isn't going to call in, I might. I've made it to the end of my stream, and George made me hate the word abomination. I mean, I still think of the Incredible Hulk villain. How many of the people on the Super Bowl 50s are Trump supporters, specifically the guys enabling Trump's current campaign? That determines if I can support Preston's desire. Look, man, I don't care who these guys these guys support. I'm sure like being like rich executives, they probably lean conservative, but even if they are liberal, it doesn't matter. It was such a bad idea. Such a fucking bad idea. I just boneheaded idea. Just where I'm just like, you're just like, what are you thinking, dude? What are you thinking? Like why would you do that? It's just beyond me. I mean, there's some things that like you can kind of understand, like Rambo movies. Okay, the first Rambo is actually not called Rambo. It's called First Blood. And the thing is, after First Blood came out, it became like Rambo himself became more famous than First Blood. So they decided to call the second movie Rambo First Blood 2 Rambo. and I'm sorry, Rambo : First Blood Part 2. Okay, so at least they recognizing that the movie is called First Blood, so now they're going to call the second movie Rambo. And then the third movie is called Rambo 3, which makes no sense, because there's only been one movie called Rambo. So if you want the next movie should be called Rambo 2, or it should be called Rambo First Blood Part 3. But it's not like I'm not in their logic process being like, well, people don't remember these names. These are stupid movies. People fucking remember that the Super Bowl uses goddamn Roman numerals. Thoughts on Hemingway, James Baldwin, and Dickens? I mean, I guess I like Hemingway. He's so very simple. I don't know if I've ever read anything by Baldwin. But it's like, you know, Hemingway. I mean, the thing is I haven't really read much Hemingway except like from in like times of school. So you're not really like enjoying it or understanding it. You know, you're just kind of taking it. Now with Dickens, it's the same. Like, though I seem to remember like Dickens being for some reason more enjoyable, like more characterization, even if it is just kind of meanders and meanders and meanders. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I have like anything deep to say on them. I wish I did. I don't have any like strong love or strong hatred, but but um, that's it. You know. But you know, I wish I had a better answer to that. All right, guys, it is past midnight, and so I am going to head to bed. But thank you all for being here. Thank you, everyone, and trying to think of anything interesting coming out this week that I'm working on. I've been working on a video. I'm working on a video about how the how illogical the timeline for the Dance of the Dragons is, and obviously always working on prepping for winter. And I should really get back to my Damon video that I need to do. But anyway, that's on the plate, and hopefully you guys see that in the future. But anyway, thanks for everything, and I'll see you guys next time.